It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Okay.
Doing well.
Great.
Everybody out there is doing okay. I'm going to start off what's been going on this week because I want to apologize in advance. I'm coming out of a little bit of bout with sinus infection, so I don't know how well I'm going to sound. And you may not hear me as much on this episode because I'm muting myself for coughing or sneezing and that kind of stuff. So I'm apologizing in advance. And that's pretty much what I've been dealing with this week. Didn't really have much time to do reading because I actually, in addition to this, had other obligations. So I have a bag of nothing. So what about the rest of y'all? What's been going on with y'all?
So basically, you're telling us you have a NyQuil-induced stupor for this past week.
I actually don't. I've never done NyQuil, but I may have to sometime. It's pretty much Sudafed and regular cough syrup and just fighting it out. So.
Yep, that's mostly all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
See, I prefer the NyQuil to sleep it out.
Right. Why be conscious if you can?
Right. You can sleep the sick away.
Hey, I could use it because there was a couple of nights where I only got about 2 or 3 hours sleep. So yeah, it would have been handy.
Yeah.
It's hard to sleep when you can't breathe.
Yeah.
See, when I was sick, I took my NyQuil with my melatonin. Out like a baby.
Good God. You're lucky you woke up at all. Shit.
Yeah. I felt real good when I woke up.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's slugging it back with a shot of tequila, too, I guess. Damn.
No vodka and orange juice.
I'd need a screwdriver, too, if somebody gave me all that.
Although I will tell
Continental.
every time my brother-in-law gets sick, he goes and gets a gallon of vodka and a gallon of orange juice. And by the time both of those are gone, he's feeling better. So I don't know if the alcohol allows him to absorb all the vitamin C or just knocks him out to where he thinks he feels better.
Probably not feeling anything for most of it.
Right. Numb from the neck down. I mean, she's...
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's a professional, though, so...
Drinker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
How do you get
Don't
that
try
job?
this at home, kids.
We have a keg in the kitchen. I mean, little refrigerator for it and everything.
No. Professional means he gets paid for it.
Oh, well, no. He pays them to drink, so...
Just because he's an inspired amateur doesn't mean... Just because he does it a lot doesn't make him a pro.
Right.
It just makes him well practiced.
A veteran.
Veteran, there you go.
Anyway.
Anywho. Already into the ditch. Let's try to get back out.
You threw us off by going first. No, that's fine. All right, comics. We're going to talk about comics this week, I swear.
Wow.
So I did... I know. It's wild, isn't it? Crazy
Novel
talk.
ideal.
Crazy novel. That's funny. Anyway, so reading. I did do a little bit of reading. I am neck deep in Hellboy at this point. I have picked up all 4 of the omnibuses. I am about halfway through the second one right now, and I am enjoying the hell. No, see, it's by if it's Roman. Latin. Sorry, not Roman, Latin. And it's buses if it's Greek, and omnibus is definitely Greek. Anyway, nerd moment over. Let's get back to let's get off the nerd stuff and go back to comics.
What?
Exactly. But yeah, so lots and lots of Hellboy. The other thing I'm reading is actually kind of a regular-ish book, and this is kind of cool because I have mentioned, and it's been a while actually since I mentioned it, but I've mentioned one of the podcasts I listen to is called The Story Behind, and the host of that show, Emily, got this really sweet deal about a year ago, which allowed her to turn her podcast into a book. So, yeah, and her show is she takes just sort of random everyday things and sort of chases down where they come from, and usually finds lots of cool, interesting trivia facts along the road. She's a big going down the rabbit hole type person. But yeah, so I have picked up, her book came out about a month ago, and I picked it up, and I'm reading my way through it, and it's really interesting so far. It's kind of right up my alley, of course. I mean, not surprising since I listen to the podcast, but I like that sort of trivia type stuff, so it's pretty cool.
That does sound cool.
Neat.
You know, I've been meaning to ask you. You said that Q from Impractical Jokers does a podcast also?
Yes.
What is the name of that?
Tell 'em Steve Dave.
Tell 'em Steve Dave. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I've been meaning to ask you that, so when you said podcast, it triggered.
Yep. Yeah, because doing this every week doesn't trigger anything.
Right. Well, I always forget, and then when we watched at night, I told my husband, I was like, he has a podcast, and he's like, really, what's it called? And I'm like, huh. I can't even show it to you.
Excellent question.
That's what social media is for.
Right.
Anyway.
Sure. I guess I could have Googled that, but Maybe.
Just a thought.
Well, I almost had a big bag of nothing for this week, but I let Brandon borrow some of my new comic book or trades and graphic novels. He went out of town, and so he brought them back and laid them on my desk, and it was like, oh. I read the Bill Finger story. That was really good. And the Die Kitty Die, which she actually died. So it was like, wow, you know, they've been trying to do this for years, you know. And I guess I should have said spoiler alert, but sorry.
Maybe a little.
You know? So I'm really excited to start the Heaven and Hell that came out. And I think it came out last week. I need to go pick up my new stuff. But 0 and number 1 came out, so should give
and
you
number 2.
And number 2?
Yes.
So it'll be a good chunk of the story when I pick that up. Yeah, that's about it. I think I've been reading more of my trades than my singles this week. So I kind of failed my Ziploc challenge. Meh.
Yeah, but
wah,
I mean,
wah.
you got some reading done.
I did, yep.
So that's cool. Yeah, I got that Bill Finger book is on my pile too. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah. I said it was pretty good because I think we all know Bob Kane, you know, and so it was really interesting to learn more about him and, you know, so. But I think we're doing it. Was that supposed to be a secret
No.
book? Okay.
Really?
No.
Okay. So.
No. We had talked about it at one point being a secret book, but we decided against it somehow, I think. But
Yeah.
then got the book anyway.
Yeah. Which is a good deal because like I said it's a really good story. But yeah, that was my week. Other than it being cold here.
Yeah. Cold.
Yeah. For me, the cold complicates things. My hands just don't take. I love cold. I grew up in Colorado, but now my hands can't take the cold. But I found out at Walgreens they sell a bag of those hand warmers, and those are awesome. Those have been my friend.
They work on the feet, too.
Ah, that's a good idea.
Sounds like experience talking there.
I've been hunting, so...
Trying to find something for Gina to keep her cold-ass feet off of you.
Yeah, I get them right in the middle of the back. And
Oh, yeah.
late at night. Whew.
Ah!
That's the dogs for us. And I got a new dog, Lacey, and she's part greyhound, so she's got these really, really, really long legs. So she'll get under the covers, and when she gets hot, she just sticks those legs straight up. Well, of course, when it does, it pulls the covers up off of us like we're in a tent or something. So, yeah. So it's been cold.
Well, I've started reading a double novel of Doc Savage. These are fun collections, and to me it's just interesting to look at the time frame in which these were written and equate them to the present, and kind of giggle at the fact that they're not the kindest examples of women. They also have that feel of an old tough guy movie. You expecting them to go D's and does and use guys. So it's just good, clean fun.
Just good,
And there's
clean,
always some mystery.
just
So,
good, clean stereotyping.
yes. And you look at it, and this is volume 86.
Lord.
So you're looking at 172 novels so far in this series. Each book has 2 novels, so it's kind of fun to get through them, and each novel is about 60 pages. But you put that into a paperback, and that 60 pages turns to 110, 120 pages. But it's fun.
Cool. Yeah, I remember reading 1 or 2 of those when I was a kid. Not 172 of them, but a few.
Alrighty. Sounds cool. Before we get into this week's discussion, I want to take a couple of moments to thank the fine folks of Things from Another World for sponsoring the fellowship. And right now, through November 26th, they are running a progressive sale. It started the first of the month at 40% off select items. And currently, as of when this episode drops, it will be 60% off. And it's eventually going to be 70% off. So, if this piqued your interest, which I would assume it would, what we recommend you do is to go to www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on the Sponsors tab, and you can find out more information about this current sale as well as their other evergreen deals. And you can also click on the link that we'll have there, or click on the ad, and that will take you to their website, and that will let them know that we sent you their way. And knock yourself out. It's we're in the middle of November. Thanksgiving's coming around the corner, and what's after that.
God, I heard a Christmas song on the radio yesterday.
I'm surprised it took you that long because I think some
I don't listen to
stations
radio
are.
a lot.
Oh, there you go. I think some started right after Halloween. So
Yeah, I think you're right.
So.
Spartan. Oops, sorry. I thought I muted it. I was yelling at the door. Sorry.
That was random.
I thought I had it unmuted, but.
Oh, you had it unmuted, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have to decide whether I'm cutting that out or not.
Now I wonder how long it was muted.
Don't cut it out.
I told you what I did this week, right?
Something about tequila and NyQuil. I don't know.
Sorry.
So check out our website for these deals and go check them out. And thank you very much, Things from Another World, for being a sponsor of the fellowship. It's much appreciated. Okay. You know what they say about best laid plans of mice and men? We had something a little bit more lighthearted planned for this week's episode. But as those who are longtime listeners to this podcast may remember that we record these on Tuesday evenings. And on the day before, November 12th, the news came down that we lost a legend. And I don't think there's any debate about this, of the use of that word, in the comics industry. Stanley Martin Lieber, who's better known as Stan Lee, passed away at the age of 95. And I felt that we cannot, we had to take the time to remember him and talk about his accomplishments and his influence and all that. I think it would have been an egregious error if we had not recognized this moment. So things will be maybe a little bit more down, but I don't think it would be too down because he wouldn't want that. And he wasn't that. He was the person that I never met him, but every time you saw him, he was so full of life. He was always smiling. He was just happy to be there. That, to me, it's kind of an infectious. It was something infectious. Kind of gets you hoppy and excited. That's kind of an in-joke for people who live around locally here, but just kind of get you energetic and kind of excited about things. So I figured we would take some time to discuss him and his life and what he has done and how he changed things in not only in the comics but just basically pop culture. So I'm going to step back and let someone else kind of give their thoughts first.
Well, I've had a hard time putting this into a thought. When it first was told to me that he had passed away, I probably spent the next 15 minutes on the internet just thinking and praying, let this be a hoax. How many times have they said he's died? And in my mind, but you don't want it to be true, Although I'm not a very big Marvel fan, the characters that he did give to Marvel were probably some of the Marvel I did like. Part of what touched me so much on this, and I'm going to try not to get emotional on them, I have a son who, when he was born with heart problems. And by the age of 2, he had 5 major surgeries, 2 of them being open heart. And he always felt like he was different, that, it kept him small, and it kept him really skinny and stuff. So he always, he couldn't play with other people because a cold to him was pneumonia. And, we had a really rough go of it. When he started school, he stayed sick all the time, so there was big chunks of his education that he missed. And by the time he got better and healthy and everything else, we realized there's big chunks of like reading fundamentals and comprehension that just weren't there. So he didn't want to read. Everything was just, no, it's too boring, or it's too complicated, or he just didn't understand it, And the first thing that he understood was Spider-Man. And it was his way of, this guy is different, and he's nerdy, and he doesn't quite fit in with everybody, kind of like me, And from there, it went to X-Men, to Batman, to, to really has a full grasp now. Because with comprehension, with a comic book, it's a lot easier, because you don't really have to understand what you're reading. You can see it, and more visual, the more you get it. So for him, Stan Lee has always been a very, very big hero in his life. But to me, he was the guy who got my kid to read and made him feel halfway normal, that he could be different and still be cool, and that his sickness could be a superpower, and it really changed his life. And like I said, I'll always be grateful for that. But I think what's been so wonderful, if you can call anything about his death wonderful, is the stories that you've read with the people's lives that he's touched, and some of the artists, no matter what side of the fence they were on, how welcoming he was and how freely he gave his advice away, and just made everybody feel like they were a friend. No, I won't say friend. He made you feel like you were family, And his fans were always number one to him. They were talking about a convention that he would, he was always at all the conventions, it seemed. But they said it was hard to keep him behind a table, which of course that's where they wanted him signing things, because he wanted to get out and see what people were wearing and what they were doing and what they were talking about. So, which is, for a big name, it's different when they want to grovel with us peasants. But he never made us feel like we were peasants or that we were a bother to him. And maybe 2 months ago, he retired from signing at cons, and to me that was the end of the era there. He was approachable. Some of the artists and creators that you meet now, they're not very approachable because they've got this ego, and they're kind of like, yeah, I know my work's good. You don't have to tell me my work's good. And there's no telling how many times that Stan Lee had heard that Spider-Man was relevant to them, or, but every time he would listen to you like you were the only person there, and he had never heard that before in his life. And it takes a very, very special person and a very kind heart to touch people the way that he did. So he will be very, very missed. Very missed. But, I can't say that he'll be missed, because the man has a legacy that will outlive us all. It will outlive my grandkids. And that's when I die, I hope that I could leave something like that behind, like he is.
That was a great story, Liz.
Thank you.
I don't know that we can really say much past that.
Oddly enough, I was thinking the same thing. It's going to be hard to follow that.
Sorry, I should have went last. Huh? Yeah, my son was the first person I reached out to when I found out that he had passed.
May I ask what his reaction was?
Oh, he was upset. I mean, very upset. It was kind of like, wow, you never think your superheroes can die. So I think it was kind of a wake-up call to him. But 95, I mean, if I can just live to be 80, 95, what a full, happy life. I mean, I won't go into the last years of his life there because that was heartbreaking in itself. But to have that many wonderful years and people who just adore you and people who don't even read your comics know your name. Yeah, it was definitely nerd rant cry for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's gonna be tough to go after that. So.
Yep. Good night, everybody. No.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Sorry. But other than that, there was a lot of things that he did that changed comic history. He was the first one to print a comic off of the Comic Code. When the Comic Code told him no, he was like, holds my beer. And he did it anyway. So, I mean, when you look at the time that he was in, when comics weren't very popular, not a lot of people admitted to reading them, and he was out there at conventions, at colleges, at any place that would listen to him. He was there pushing comics, pushing the mainstream, making them relevant, making them cool and hip, and you don't have to be this nerd to read them. And I think anybody, no matter who they write for, can be thankful for that, because I really feel that he was the champion for comic books, not just Marvel. Just, if you can do it, and on Twitter, there's so many artists who have stated just that. He told them, just do it. You're good. Just believe in yourself and do it,
Well, and the way he got into all of that was, completely out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He started working at, was it Timely yet? Trying
Yes.
to remember now.
Yeah.
So he's 16 years old.
Yeah. Cleaning the floors.
Right. Filling ink pots. Doing whatever. And within a couple of years, he's like the only person left in the office almost. So he's just kind of had to take over.
Yeah. Like, hey, you want a job?
Right. And just like, all right, I guess I'm the editor now, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And kind of had to figure it all out by the seat of his pants. And in a way that's sort of a version of the American dream in its own way.
Right.
Is you just kind of get out there and just do it. That's what he did. That's why he can give that advice, honestly, is because that's kind of how he had to do it.
Yeah.
And
he didn't let anything stop him,
Right, and he allowed that. Obviously, I don't mean this in a bad way, but he allowed that ignorance in its own way to. It completely rebuilt the industry. There's a lot of stuff that he did because honestly, he was just trying to figure out an easier way to do stuff because he was having to do so much of it all by himself. Him and a handful of artists, came up with all of that stuff that they came up with in a relatively short amount of time mainly because they had to, because they were trying to figure out how to get books out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, necessity is kind of the mother of invention. I mean, in a way, that's a motto for his career.
Yeah. But I think it was new and it was exciting to him, and that's exactly the attitude he put into his comic books. You felt that, you know? Like you said, he breathed almost a new life into it, you know? But the co-creators that he had, I would have loved to have had that team with me to do those things. You know?
Holy cow, no kidding.
You know, Kirby, oh my God, I get to work with Kirby, you know, Ditko.
These guys are all the other legends in the industry. I mean, yeah. That's to be able to be teamed up with all those legends. Yeah, sure.
You know, to kind of touch on a touchy subject during this time, I think a lot of people think that he took the credit from like Kirby and Ditko, but he was the one out there. He was the face. Like I said, anywhere they would let him speak, he spoke. You know, I think that's why he made an impression and it stuck with them. You know.
That's a valid point, because I saw something, a similar sentiment just today on Twitter, or maybe it's not Twitter, maybe it's Facebook. It's one of the social medias. They were talking about the passing of Stan Lee, but they didn't know who Steve Ditko was.
Yeah.
And the response was, well, there's a difference between a showman and a hermit.
Yeah.
Because Ditko was literally a hermit.
Well,
he very rarely got out anywhere.
Kirby didn't make the same rounds that Stan Lee did either. You know.
Yeah, no, Kirby was a little more of the curmudgeonly types, not so much the hermit, but the guy who he would say what he was thinking, whether it was popular or not. Whereas Stan was a little more charismatic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they sent Stan went out instead of sending Kirby, who was just as likely to piss people off as he was to sell them a comic book.
Yeah.
And that's all right too, because it takes all types to do that stuff. That's not knocking their genius in any way.
It does. And when you want to peddle your goods, you want a cheerleader, which is what he was.
You send the salesman out, and that's what you do, and that's just a smart way to handle it.
Mm-hmm. But it didn't make their work any less, you know. And like now, we have this huge surge in comic book movies to where people who've never picked up a comic book in their life know some of our comic book canon now, but they all know who he is because of his cameos, awesome cameos, by the way. But, you know, he became, like you guys said earlier, he's part of our pop culture, not just our comic book world, too, you know. And I think had he have not had that infectious, oh my God, I want to eat you guys all up kind of attitude, we wouldn't remember him like that, you know.
If he wasn't so likable, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree.
I saw something today on the NFL channel. The 4 people were discussing the upcoming game between the Packers and the Seahawks. I was just flipping channels, and I had to stop because they came up with a tribute to Stan Lee.
Wow.
Asking what characters are portrayed by players on the 2 teams. And they came up with Mr. Fantastic and The Thing and a couple of others. And I was kind of pleased with the idea that they had this small tribute.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that many people watching would know exactly what was going on, but it was interesting that they would break down the ideas that these fictional characters could be used to make their point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that Stan Lee was actually referenced on the NFL Network is
Right. Because jocks
interesting.
usually don't like nerds.
But see, that's just a nasty stereotype
Right.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
which was perpetuated by the 1980s pretty much. But yeah, I mean, I think you'd be surprised how many people.
Nerds play football.
Right. I mean, if you don't believe that they're, well, whether they're talking about players or fans, I mean, watch a Raiders game and look in the stands and see how many pop culture references you see.
Right.
You'll see Spider-Man, and you'll see the Incredible Hulk, and you'll see Darth Vader, and just all over the place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's there. There's not like a strict line that divides sports and comics, not by a long shot.
Right.
They're just different types of fandom, that's all.
It's true.
And if social media would get that idea, I wouldn't still be avoiding Twitter. But anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you ought to take a peek, though, because Twitter's got some really nice stories right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's one good thing, and I think I retweeted it. I believe it was Chris Ryle who was talking about the kind of the one good fact that has come out of this is seeing all the pictures. It's not just celebrities and actors and athletes and all that, but it's the everyday people who are right there next to Stan, and everybody's got the biggest smile on their faces, and you can tell that everybody's just happy, and just the stories that have been coming out the last 24 hours. That, yeah.
Well, not only
That's
are
been
they
awesome.
smiling, he was,
Yes.
and you can tell it's not fake.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, he was very appreciative of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Very appreciative of the fans.
Well, even to the very end,
Mm-hmm.
with some of the tweets and even little videos that he put out for us, you know? Going through hell, and he's still thinking of his fans, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Although I thought that was so cute. It was like little old people, you just want to eat them up. When he was asking how to post a video on Twitter, and people were trying to explain to him, you know. And it's like, wow, the man was genius. I mean, you know. And now we're explaining how to put a video on Twitter. You know? I thought that was just so cute, you know.
Yeah, gotta learn it somehow.
Right. And of course, you know, everybody was more than willing. Because at that point, we didn't know if it was really him that was tweeting, and I think he was even on Facebook for a little while. So to see the video and to see that he was okay and it really was him, you know, he did that for us to let us know I'm okay, you know. You don't have to worry, I'm okay.
He gave us characters that, if I remember, back in the 60s, a comic was made about Marvel Comics. And things like Spider-Man, Peter Parker was a superhero, a teenager with angst. And that has always stuck with me, because at that time, that's what it was. I was a teenager when Spider-Man began. And it was a character that I could almost relate to. Later in life, I related more to Herbie. And
And we're not talking the love bug.
No.
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 But this was a strong character, and also brought out the first family of comics, and brought you Iron Man and Hulk. People think that he was creator of Captain America, which he was not. But he revived Captain America in the 60s.
Yeah.
And by bringing him forward in the Avengers, Captain America then started his own title, and it's still ongoing. The characters that Marvel relies on, and especially in the movies, the majority of those characters are Stan Lee characters that he co-created. And if that's a plus, I think it's a big A plus, because those characters will be around forever.
Mm-hmm.
They will undergo changes, but to me, they will be similar to the big three at DC, which have been tweaked, but they will endure.
Yeah.
They will be around forever.
I think a lot of billions of dollars made from movies over the last 10 years is probably living proof of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. You brought up something that I'm glad you did, because I was gonna do it. Was one of the things that he brought was characters that, yes, they had superpowers, but they were pretty much everyday people as well. You mentioned Spider-Man. The same time period that we're talking about with Superman's major problems, other than battling the alien of the month or some of the other supervillains, was how to convince Lois that he's not Clark Kent. You've got Peter Parker, who's dealing with being the social outcast, and always being picked on by the bully. Trying to bring home money because his uncle was murdered, and all he has is his aunt, who's too old to apparently to work. So he's trying to, how do I pay the rent? How do I get food on the table? In addition to dealing with the bad guy of the month. So it was relatable. And a lot of the other characters that was something that he kind of brought in. He and Kirby and Ditko, they brought that in. It's just a relatableness to the characters.
Yeah.
X-Men, I mean, they're outcasts. They're different. Mm-hmm. And teenagers. I mean, teenagers always thought they were different, but what if you're a teenager of a different color, different sexual orientation, different religion, everything else? You can relate to the X-Men.
And that's in the middle of the civil rights movement that he's pulling that stuff out. I mean, that's ballsy, if nothing else.
Yes.
Well, and just his Stan soapbox that he used to do in the back of his comics. he spoke out on those things of bullies and discrimination, and when everybody else was kind of like, go with the flow, man,
Mm-hmm. And it obviously struck some nerves
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
because it sold
Yeah.
and it stuck around.
That's why it kind of gets to me when people are like, oh, I forget what they were saying was racist. And it was kind of like, are you kidding me? Stan Lee and Kirby, two Jewish guys, wrote that, right? I mean, I don't think they're being racist. If anybody, they realized, especially at the time period when they were writing, that, just being who they were caused people not to like them. So there was a lot they were going up against and speaking up against, and it took a lot of courage.
Right, and I mean, coupled with the fact that they're Jewish, they also both served in
Yep.
the military during
Yep.
World War II.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they both fought Hitler. Were they both on the front lines? No, I don't believe they were. But, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they, believe me, if they had wanted to get into racism, they kind of knew where to go.
Right.
They had seen that stuff.
Right.
They knew what was what there. They wouldn't have been hiding it.
Well, and when they spoke out against it, they knew firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Although I know this is about Stan Lee, I have to laugh when Jack Kirby, they came to him when he was doing Black Panther, and they were like, man, you need some more white characters in here, That was the thing. And he says, okay, so the next issue he put out was Black Panther fighting the KKK. So it's like, there's your white guys. So they did what they wanted, which was awesome.
Right. That is awesome. And Black Panther, that's, I mean, another great example. I mean, it was the 60s again. There had never really been a black superhero before.
Not a mainstream, no.
Right.
And definitely not one in a high power like that,
Mm-hmm. Pretty groundbreaking stuff, really.
It was, yep.
Pretty ballsy.
They were.
Yeah, I mean, early on, that was a lot of that. I think was, well, what the hell do we have to lose?
Yeah, what are they going to do? Fire
type
me?
attitude. Yeah. I mean, they're going to shut the doors. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Then who's going to be their editor and clean the floors?
Right.
Yeah.
So why not? Just go nuts. Let's kind of just do what we want to do, and by golly, it worked.
Yep, it did.
And then they managed to keep it relevant for a couple of decades. A couple of tough decades, honestly. Hard to keep anything relevant through the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah. And like Thomas was saying, well, after they've passed on, we still have that, and it's still going strong, and the people he's inspired can now pick up the mantle and keep running,
Yep, the people he handed the reins over to managed to keep them relevant also.
Mm-hmm. But, I think that's a lot of the reason why Marvel has had such a good run on their movies and stuff, is they got him involved. Not that he made these movies great or anything else, but who better than to pick their brain on what was this guy thinking than the guy who made them? I mean,
Right, made them and wrote them for the first 10 years. I mean, yeah.
That input has, it's amazing. I wish DC would do more of that,
DC doesn't have the access to the people who created those
True.
characters as much anymore. I mean, a few of them, some of the later ones, but
a lot of them sadly are passed on.
Yeah, I mean, so like their big three all got created way before the Marvel stuff did. So
yeah.
you know.
But there's people who have come along and have almost made those characters their own that you could still talk to and get some input going,
Yeah, there are. And I mean, it does make you wonder who they're choosing to do that with and who they're not choosing to do that with.
Yeah.
But in terms of the very, very, very mixed success of the DC movies lately. But yeah.
And it would be weird to see a Jim Lee cameo in all of our movies. We'll keep him on the sidelines.
I think it would be, again, it would be a hard act to follow.
It definitely.
I mean, I think Stan kind of set the bar high on that by being so consistent with it.
Broke the mold.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to see if I could pull up a list of his characters.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I don't know if we got that kind of time here.
Right. Oh, yeah, we're talking hundreds. Yeah, Wikipedia says the following 200 pages. There's approximately 362 total characters.
Sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I won't name all those off. Yeah. Now, the Lucifer he created is the different one than Neil Gaiman ran with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Like Neil Gaiman's running with Satan. That sounded wrong. He's my bro.
Gonna assume our lovely listeners knew what you meant with that, but yeah. God, it's weird even thinking about this.
I know.
It's still a little surreal. I mean, yes, the guy was 95 years old. He wasn't going to live forever, but damn, still.
Yeah. But if anybody could, he probably him.
Well, it's like my son told me, your superheroes aren't supposed to die,
Has he read comics in the last 30 years?
Mm.
I mean, geez.
Yeah, well,
They pretty much all died.
They die, they come back, they die, they come back.
Well, maybe we'll get Stan in one of those Futurama head jar things soon or something.
They've been showing his Simpsons episode where he went to go visit the comic book guy. Like day 3, Bart comes in and he's like, man, he's still here. And he's like, yes. He won't leave.
Nice.
Yeah, there was another cartoon he used to do too. Just flipping through channels and I heard his voice and it's like, wait a minute. That's Stan Lee,
Kind of hard to mistake.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he even had a cameo in the Spider-Man video game. Because I saw that. And I did not realize that. And he had a cameo in the Teen Titans Go movie.
Yeah.
Which I heard was very funny, which...
You go figure, Stan Lee in a DC cartoon,
Why the hell not at that point?
Right.
He did some stuff for DC.
Yeah.
Not a ton, but...
Not a ton, but...
If nothing else, they did some crossover stuff.
Yeah.
At times.
And he did the series where he was taking the mantle of what if Stan Lee created Superman.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was Just Imagine, and it was like there was like his version of Superman, his version of Robin, his version of.
Didn't he do Batman too?
It was quite a list. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a few books, he didn't necessarily write them, but it was his idea, and then hand it off to others to take the mantle and go with. But
a pretty impressive list of artists, as I recall.
yeah,
Yes.
Well, and also TV. Other than my son, one of the first people I thought about when I heard of his passing was Perkala on Who Wants to Be a Superhero. That was pretty cool. I wish they would have done more than one season of that.
they did two seasons.
Did they?
Yeah, and then there was an online thing, but I don't know if Stan was actually involved with the online, which is what she was involved with.
Ah.
But there was someone else that I thought about. I thought about her. I also thought about Mary Votava, who I'm Facebook friends with, and she was in the first season. She was Monkey Woman in the first season, and I'm Facebook friends with her. And yeah, she's posted something about that, and but yeah.
Yeah. And then he also did the was it like Real Superhumans, or how were people who have like really weird, freaky things that they can do? Like one guy was able to like harness electricity through his body without it killing him and stuff. But he went and talked to them, and real life superheroes kind of thing. I forget the name of that now, but that was pretty interesting too. Just some of the people he spoke with was like, wow, that guy should be dead. Because a guy with electricity, when he's got this electricity going through him, it also made him magnetic. So he was like attaching forks and things to himself. So it was like, wow. So it was always something really interesting like that. Now, has anybody said who's taking over his charity now that he's passed?
I'm sure that's stuff that they had been looking into, but obviously there hadn't been anything official yet.
Yeah, too soon.
Yeah, but I'm sure a lot of that stuff has been.
I'm sure there was a plan.
Yeah, there was a plan. Thank you.
Have any of you experienced a Q&A with him?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
I had, and it was friggin' fascinating. He was with,
I bet.
I think it was Grant Morrison he was on stage with.
Wow.
Because they were going to start a new company of comics. And this was apart from Marvel. And I don't recall the organization he did, but he was a guy that could control the conversation, and obviously when he does that, he could control the crowd. And of course, when they had the open mic, people were walking up and going, I'm your biggest fan, and I'm starting to nod off. Going, come on, get to your question.
Right. Quit gushing.
Yeah. Just check number one and move on. But he was always genial. He was always having fun. And even in signing, if he was at a signing, he was one of those people, and there are very few of them, but I have witnessed a few, that didn't matter where you were in line. When you came up to him, you were treated like you were the first person in line.
Mm-hmm.
And that really endeared him to me, and obviously those around him. The people that handled him at a convention, the convention workers that would make sure that he was taken care of, always had good word for him. They knew exactly what he wanted. They knew how to handle it. And he was always happy when they were there to see to his every need. It was fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Well, they did a celebrate New Year's Eve with Stan Lee, and which was a really good idea because people got to eat breakfast with him, and he counted down to midnight, which was so cute because before he would count down to midnight, he had to call Joan. So I thought that was very sweet. But everybody who ate breakfast with him were like, man, he was just, personal stories and career stories. I mean, he was just, what do you want to know? I'm an open book. Just tell me what you want to know. And with how well, of course, this was all centered around him, so he ran the show. But I think it wound up that the people who put the show on didn't even pay him. And I never heard of any lawsuits or anything come from him, I think he kind of chalked it up to a good night with fans and friends, Although I would have been upset. You told me I'd have money.
That's pretty solid.
Mm-hmm. That is. Well, and then there was also that, you had Stan Lee Media outside of Marvel, and there was like a local theater. We're talking students that were not like high school students, of course, but they were using, was it Spider-Man? And Marvel stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. And Stan Lee went to bat for them. And they're like, you know what? If they want to use that, let them use that. It's mine. Of course, that led to the big suit between him and Marvel of what's mine and what's yours, Because unfortunately, he worked during a time where his rights weren't protected like that, Which I said I wasn't going there, and I did, didn't I? This is happy.
You did go there a little bit.
Yeah.
It's all right. We can still pull it back.
Okay. It's not like I mentioned his daughter or anything,
Right.
This is the first time that someone has backed the bus over themselves.
Right.
That's a first for this show.
Leave it to the woman driver.
Oh. Wasn't going to go there, but all right.
2 in a row. Wow.
Right. She's getting pretty good at jumping out in front of this bus she's driving.
Right.
I don't know how that works, but okay.
I'm ghosted. Is that what the kids call it? Is that what the kids call it? Yeah.
Yeah,
When
we're
they're
not
getting out of the
kids,
car
so how would we know?
Right. Well, I think that's what the kids call it now is ghosted.
I'll have to ask mine tomorrow if I think about it.
Yeah. Or the Kiki where they were all getting out dancing and getting hit by their own cars.
Why all of a sudden do I have this image of Steve Buscemi dressed up like a teenager? And I'm sure you've seen that picture on social
Hello,
media.
fellow kids.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly the image I have in my mind right now. Hello, fellow kids. And of course, she's carrying a skateboard and all that. Just like, okay.
Yep.
Oh, and that TV show I was trying to think of, the Stan Lee Superhumans. It looks like there was 3 seasons of it.
Okay.
I say it's pretty cool if you ever get a chance to check some of it out. Some of these, there were real people, so it was kind of like, wow. Guy put a drill through his head. I mean, you shouldn't be able to do things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was always real freaky, like freak house kind of stuff that he would go and talk to these people.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Any other final thoughts or recollections? Because what I was wanting to do was end this with a series of quotes that I've been reading the last 24 plus hours that I kind of wanted to end this with, but I didn't want to cut anybody off.
Well, obviously, condolences to his family and friends.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
And to his fans. I
Yeah.
think they're feeling it pretty hard, too.
Yes, they are feeling it pretty hard.
Yep.
I
He will
said-
definitely be missed.
I know I'm an emotional person, but this one hit me pretty hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like that friend that you have that you don't see very often. You know, and they're not imaginary. But he
Well,
just...
that narrows it down a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a person you knew everything about and didn't really know them, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and as we kind of half joked about it, but we're still kind of in the, man, I really thought he was going to live forever sort of stage.
Right.
Because, I mean, he's just been around forever. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so like I said, it's still a bit surreal.
Yeah. Although I think what Marvel put out as their statement was really well said, and I should have pulled it up, but I can't remember. I didn't remember
All
to.
the publishers did something. DC did, and Valiant. I've seen almost maybe not all of them, but a lot of them certainly put out some kind of statement
Yeah.
regarding its passing, which that says a lot.
Oh, totally.
Total. Yeah. That's like when Juan was telling me, "Oh, you know, blow for Marvel." No, it's a blow to all of us.
Yeah. Well, like I said in my post on social media, and I'm sure y'all saw this, he was a great ambassador for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
He is the greatest cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was new and exciting, and you never heard him say anything negative about anything. I'm sure he's the one that came up with the nickname the Distinguished Competition, meaning DC. I'm sure he came up with that because he was one that came up with all the nicknames for everybody. You know, it was Jazzy John Romita and Jack King Kirby and all that. As a matter of fact, I saw a tweet today from Dan Slott saying that he was given the nickname Darling Dan Slott. He's like, should I keep it? Yeah. If Stan gave it to you, yeah. Yeah.
You kind of don't have a choice, man.
Well, especially when you put it out there, so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was kind of the Beatles to the comic world. You know? He surpassed all ages and genres and cultures and religions, and
There was even a statement from Paul McCartney about his passing.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Because he talked about a time where they had a meeting and Stan was going to create a superhero, and the superpowers came from the Hofner base.
Wow.
It never happened, but they talked about it. So.
See, I can't remember now if it was Tom King or Scott Snyder who said that they were fortunate enough to sit next to him at a panel, and just sitting there, they came up with like their own little guy and what they would call it, and you know, so from what you just said and what he said, it sounds like his brain was always firing. What's next? You know?
Yeah, that was one of the quotes I saw. Was he talked about people always dreaming for the day that they retire and then go play golf, and he said he would be in golf, and he's thinking, I need to be working.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and he was helping with that. I think it's an online comic they were doing for the. God. I'll have to look it up. I think it was a weekly thing. He wasn't, doing anything but giving them ideals and part of the story kind of thing, which was a lot, but, to say he had a hand in it, I think there was other people doing it. But they were his ideals and
his plot.
Yeah. They just ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw before he died, I think his daughter said they created a character together called Mr. Dirt. And of course, the only thing I can think of when I hear that is Joe Dirt. So kind of ruined it for me.
We can only hope that that's not the reference.
Yeah.
Kind of ruins it for all of us, but okay.
You're welcome.
Aye.
But I really saw a change in him when Joan died. They were so in love with each other, And when she passed, he lost a piece of himself with her.
Well, they were married 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
The last year has been really tough on him. Not only just that, but there was the reports of elder abuse and all that kind of stuff.
Gold digging and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I hate to say it, that's probably not the last that we're going to be hearing of that kind of stuff.
No, it won't be.
And that's going to be the really sad part about this whole thing. Besides the fact that he's gone, is that that part is not over. That's going to be probably going for a while.
Well, anytime there's a death, the buzzards have to come out and pick it clean.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, that's what will happen here. Because he was already being picked clean before he died.
Right.
Which those people should be very ashamed of themselves.
Well, if they were ashamed of themselves, they wouldn't have done it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
unless that was necessity, but that's a different story.
It's kind of weird though, because these things happened to him after Joan died, and it's almost like she shielded him or protected him from that kind of thing,
She could have been handling the financial side or whatever. I don't know. That's something.
So Joan was his superpower.
Mm.
The romantic in me, I said in Hollywood, it's hard to say that you've been with the same person for as long as he was, That's a testament to the character he was.
Very true.
Les, any final thoughts from you?
No, none for me. Thank you, though.
Okay, I want, like I said, I wanted to end this on some of the quotes that I've been seeing the last several hours that I thought were pretty awesome, and I wanted to pass those on. One was, all I thought about when I wrote my stories was, I hope that these comics would sell so I can keep my job and continue to pay the rent. Never in a million years could I imagine that it would turn into what is evolving nowadays.
Wow.
I don't have inspiration. I only have ideas and deadlines. I used to be embarrassed because I was just a comic book writer while other people were building bridges or going on to medical careers. And then I began to realize entertainment is one of the most important things in people's lives. Without it, they might go off the deep end. I feel that if you're able to entertain people, you're doing a good thing. Another definition of a hero is someone who is concerned about other people's well-being and will go out of his or her way to help them, even if there's no chance of a reward. that person who helps others simply because it should or must be done and because it's the right thing to do is indeed, without a doubt, a real superhero. And finally, for years, kids have been asking me, what's the greatest superpower? I always say luck. If you're lucky, everything works. I've been lucky.
Very lucky.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love you, Stan Lee, and you will be missed. With that, we're going to take a quick break and be back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Mikey.
Okie dokie. Me first. My first pick is a Dynamite book, and I am excited for the return of Betty Page. This is a new #1, and so she's back. She's going to help out British intelligence this time, and will there be UFOs? Who knows? We'll have to find out. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, the first run of this was a lot of fun. Lots of action, lots of intrigue, cool stuff. So looking forward to seeing it come back again.
Does sound cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one too.
Alrighty, I am next, and I am picking a #1 as well. This is from DC Comics, or more accurately from their Vertigo imprint, and it's American Carnage. And this is written by Brian Hill, who Mikey and I really dig his stuff, and art by Leandro Fernandez. And this is about a disgraced FBI agent who's given a chance to get back into good graces by going undercover to infiltrate a white supremacist group who's believed to be responsible for the death of a fellow FBI agent. Like I said, we're fans of Hill's writing. This sounds like it's going to be a pretty interesting run. And with it being Vertigo, Brian's going to be able to have a little bit more leeway, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does. But I'm excited about this book.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Les, you are next.
Me three. From IDW is a graphic novel, Brat Pack. This was done in 1990 by Rick Veitch. And if you can imagine what Alan Moore did with superheroes in Watchmen, you can imagine what Veitch does to sidekicks in the series Brat Pack. This is a new printing of this story. It is pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
But it is really, really good. And I highly recommend it. So, step up if you can.
Yeah, I remember reading this a long time ago, and you mentioned Watchmen, and yeah, it was basically the what do you want to call them? Basically, it kind of they were based off the characters that were Charlton superheroes. With Brat Pack, these are loosely based off the original Teen Titans. And yeah, it's a little crazy. It's a little disturbing. But it was a good read. It really was.
Yes, it really is.
I wouldn't mind getting my hands on that copy again because it has been so long.
Neat.
Liz, you're next.
All right, for my first one, it's actually coming from a comic brand I haven't read a lot from called Albatross Funny Books. This one is it's called Grumble, #1. And there's a guy who is like a hustler, and during a con gone wrong, he gets turned into a pug. Of course, it's a dog story. I had to pick the dog story. Well, his daughter gets in trouble with some aliens, so she has to go find him. And of course, they go on the run together. And the gist of it is, will the interdimensional guys get them and kill them before they kill each other? So this will probably be a father-daughter love-hate kind of story. But they say if you like it gruff, you'll really like this story. So if you like dogs, pick it up. If you like aliens, pick it up. If you like dogs or people, pick it up.
I'm just thinking. You said they go on the run together. Wouldn't it be more appropriate if they went walkies together?
Yeah, there you go.
She took him for a walk.
The walkies.
Well, she's half demon, so I'm wondering why she can't change him back. But I guess we'll find that out.
Well, where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
Sounds interesting for sure.
For sure, yep. Can't beat a dog story.
Well, who would want to beat a dog, so...
Right, you better not beat a dog.
Well, you just said beat it.
She said you can't beat it.
Right.
You can't beat it.
Yeah,
yes.
that's why I'm asking, why would you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
On the same page. Awesome.
Yep.
Page. That's funny.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to top that, but
Really want to.
not really.
I
No.
didn't think
My second pick is an Image title, and this is called Burnouts. This is issue #3, and the gist of this series is that it's centered around a bunch of burnouts, and this one kind of nerdy kid kind of accidentally falls in with these older kids, and what they do is they get wasted, and the deal is that apparently they're getting wasted enough to see the aliens. And so they are the ones who are taking it on themselves to get high and defend the town they live in from the aliens. Regardless of who this means they have to beat the hell out of with a baseball bat, but so it's a wild story, to say the least, and I'm really enjoying it, and it is an interesting twist on the alien possession thing, for sure.
It's pretty cool. We're getting high to save lives.
I was about to say, is this a high concept? But...
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Mm.
Pretty dope.
Wow. Okay, cool.
We're just on a roll tonight, aren't we?
Roll.
How fat do you want this roll here?
Just give me a split second.
There's a bluntness to these jokes that I just can't quite get my head around.
You mean you're disjointed?
It's getting thick here through all the weeds, you know. Alrighty then. I am next. And for my second pick, I turn to Boom Studios for a new series called Smooth Criminals. And this is about a hacker who encounters a master thief who's been cryogenically frozen since sometime in the 60s. So she thaws her out, and they decide to not only try to figure out what happened to her, but pull off the ultimate crime. This has been written by Q.E. Smith and Kurt Lustgarten, who wrote Misfit City, which was a fun read. It was one of the books that we kind of propped up a while back. And art by Leisha Marie Riddle, who did the art for Goatee Vance. So this sounds like it could be a fun ride. So I'm kind of excited about this one too.
Cool.
I'm right there with you.
So you think when she unfreezes her, she goes, "Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie?" Okay.
Well, she could be suffering. She could be suffering from hibernation sickness, but who knows?
All right, we're not going back to Punland.
Okay.
Okay. Teo.
Teo.
Oh, boy.
Les, what's your next pick?
Me three. From IDW, a comic is coming out. It's The Greatest Hits, Atomic Robo #1. This is a great way to get into this series. They include 2 stories and give you something to base the whole series on. It's going to be a fun jump on point, and to think that Atomic Robo has been around for 10 years now. It's time for everybody out there to start reading this, because this is really top-notch story and art. And I believe that Mr. Mike will verify that too. So for $1, step on up, try this one out.
I'll buy that for $1.
I almost said that.
Oh man, the later it gets, the cheesier the jokes get. Yes, definitely. For $1, pick this up and get in on the ground floor. This is Atomic Robos has been great stuff for 10 years now. Will continue to be, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Liz.
Me four. All right, my second one is coming from IDW. It's called Night Moves. They're labeling this noir meets horror. So, keeping with my hustler theme, he's a hustler in Vegas, and he's usually the one getting beat up. But this run, he will come across the devil himself, and I don't know, he may not be getting beat up anymore. It's an oversized issue, so give you a lot of bang for your buck, normal price still. So I'm curious to see where this one goes. If it's going to be another devil you know story, or an up against the devil kind of story.
Yeah, you had me at noir meets horror.
Right.
So I'm in.
Yeah.
What, no puns?
I couldn't think of one. Wasn't there a disco song called Night Moves?
There's a Bob Seger.
No, Bob
song called
Seger,
Night
yeah.
Moves.
Yeah, I don't think that was disco, though.
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
Not by a long shot. Although I could imagine disco coming from the devil, you know.
Yeah, I think it did.
Could it be Satan?
With his greasy hair and butterfly collar.
Alrighty. And for our honorable mention this week is from Source Point Press, and it's called Monstrous. This is a 4-issue miniseries written by Gregory Wright and art by Ken Lumug. And it's a story about Dr. Frankenstein, who decides to create robots after the failure of creating the creature. And meanwhile, the creature is actually trying to create other beings himself. So this is kind of an interesting little story here, and it got my attention. So I definitely want to check this one out.
Sounds pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any special shout-outs or mentions this week?
No.
Don't think so.
No.
All righty. Go ahead and do our regular shout-outs then. First off, to Manny the Martyr, who supplies the music for our podcast. You can check out their fine work. We'll have a link in our show notes. Thank you guys very much. And also want to thank the fine folks that make up Podern Family on Twitter that retweet and spread the word of the fellowship. It's greatly appreciated. We highly suggest that you check out their fine work. And the easiest way to do that is go to Twitter and do a search. Hashtag Podern Family is one word. And just scroll down, check things out. And if an episode kind of piques your interest, download that episode. And who knows, you've probably found another show you want to check out. So thank you guys for your support. And finally, you, dear listener, we appreciate you downloading and listening to today's episode. We always appreciate your support and would love to hear from you. If you have a comment, suggestion, question, complaint, observation, whatever, we would love to hear from you. And there are several ways you can do that. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and click on the About Us page, and there's a contact form that you can fill out. You can contact us through social media, or we do ask you to follow us as well. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, and we're obviously on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. You can follow, if you'd like, you can follow our personal accounts on Twitter. Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at Newman_L. And I can be found at Tom TC Geek. And wherever you download or listen to our podcast, whether it's through iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or YouTube, if you would please rate our show, and if you have a couple extra moments to spare, a review would be awesome. Thank you very much. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening, and we appreciate your support as always. And until next week, read more comics and support your local stores.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,